welcome everyone. I can see we've got people from all over the world today, which is awesome. So welcome everyone, and we've got Brother Mark Webb with us and Cyrus Harding. We're going to present today. Um, Brother Mark's going to go first, and Brother Cyrus is going to follow up, and we'll have questions. So if you have any questions, just please put them in the chat, and we can address them as we go along or at the end as we see fit. If Brother Cyrus could start with a word of prayer and then over to Brother Mark.
Okay, thank you. Avinu Shemani, we come before you today, and whatever we do, whatever we say, we want it to bring esteem upon your name and upon your throne. Father, we can't express the many blessings that you've bestowed upon us. We thank you for the miracles that you show us daily. We, dear Father, would come before you and ask that what we say and what we do would only reflect your word, and it's not to be taken as a prediction or a prophecy. We are just, dear Father, using your signs in the heaven that you declare your glory, that we want to bring to everyone so they can see your mighty works and how your word, your Torah, your Son Yeshua, is made alive each night so that we can see the splendor that is brought to us. You use the skies as a tapestry every morning, every evening, every night, and we thank you for that. Be with us, guide us, and direct us. We ask your blessings be bestowed upon every one here today, and forgive us where we have failed you. In your name and that of your Son, Yeshua HaMashiach. Amen.
Thanks, Brother Cyrus. Okay, Brother Mark, over to you.
All right. Well, let's see. I don't see. Okay. So I wanted to point out that Tom Horn, many of you probably know Tom Horn, he had theorized that when you back up 1,290 days from Apophis, when Apophis is supposed to hit on April 13th, 2029, he had said it comes to Sukkot 2025. But actually, when I did the math on it, it works out to be right on Yom Kippur, the eve of Yom Kippur. So you back up 1,290 days from April the 13th, 2029, you have Yom Kippur. But what's interesting is, if you remember me mentioning the place that Apophis is at when it supposedly hits the earth, it's in Cancer, the possession held fast, the sheepfold, and that's where it is on Yom Kippur this coming Yom Kippur in 2025. It's Apophis is going to be again in that location, which is very stunning. It's hard to believe that it's in that spot 1,290 days prior to its hitting. So, and I put October 1st because that's when our Kahal will be celebrating it. But that's where it's at on October 1st, 1,290 days prior to uh, April the 13th. So, just an interesting note on that. And let's see. On Apophis, you can see here that in 2029, Apophis is moving through um, Cancer, but also in May 22nd of 2028, which I've mentioned before, Apophis comes into this breaker, or not Apophis, but Machotz comes into the breaker constellation, and that's basically 10 months prior to Apophis. So I put a note, is this possibly the 10 days or 10 months of awe? So Apophis is also known as Set, and it's over chaos, storms, and war. And this is a picture, a graphic from one of the images out of Egypt. And Apophis is this image you see, the hare, the rabbit is slaying Apophis, and you see the serpent with the tree. And so this is what Apophis was called. And I'm going to read Micah 2:12. It says, I will surely assemble all of you, Jacob, And remember, Apophis is in the sheepfold. I will assemble all of you, Jacob. I will surely gather the remnant of Israel. I will put them together like sheep in the fold, like a flock in the midst of the pasture. They will be noisy with men. The breaker goes up before them. They break out, pass through the gate, and they go out by it. So their king goes on before them, and Yahweh at their head. So it's just a very interesting thing. Some notes about Apophis and the events, the things that are taking place just before that event happens. Now, Tom Horn had basically theorizing that Apophis is the wormwood, and that this event in 2029 is the middle of the tribulation. It's hard for me to grab that because in order for that to be the middle, that would mean the abomination of desolation would have to happen on October. So, I mean, anything's possible, anything can happen, but everything I see seems to keep pointing to a little bit further in the timeline, a little bit further than 2029. So, but I could be wrong. Also, I wanted to say that these things that we're looking at in the heavens are observations of what's going on and the things that are happening up there. We do not promote astrology. This is what's called astronomy, and it's this studying of the heavens that God created. Is like Psalm 19 says, the heavens declare the glory of the Almighty, and there's nowhere that their voice and their message is not heard. And so we want to listen. We want to hear the message. We want to pay attention to the message that they're speaking. And so that's why we're studying to see what God is telling us. Obviously, the Magi, they knew the message and they knew that the Messiah was going to be born. They were paying attention. They wouldn't have known had they not been paying attention. So I think God is waking us up to some things because something's going to be happening and we need to be paying attention. Okay, so
Brother Mark, sorry
yeah.
to interrupt. Just in case there's people here who haven't been here before, I just wanted to bring up, because you explained to us previously how Maholtz is a harbinger comet, or we believe is a harbinger comet. So
Yes,
that the fact that it's coming on May the 8th of 2028, I believe you said it was somewhere between 10 months to sort of a year and a half, 18 months or something, that it often shows up just before something important actually happens. And the fact that on May the 8th, 2028, Maholtz is going to be in the Ram, and then on the 25th of May, it'll be in Perseus, I believe.
yep.
Then the fact
10
that
months later. Yeah.
the fact that Apophis is going to be coming on April the 13th is within that time period, correct? Is that what you're explaining?
Yes, it's always within that year and a half to year and 10 months time frame. And so yeah, that's what happened back in October 23rd, as we said in one of the other shows. We saw that Maholtz had come in January, and it was not even 10 months later the event took place. And so it was very interesting. So we got to pay attention to this possible harbinger. It's been right quite a few times, and I think 7. And so here it's coming in, like you said, May the 8th, and then May 22nd, it moves on up into Perseus. But May 8th, it's bending around the sun, and then 10 months later, we see this Apophis thing happening. So yeah, it's something to pay attention to and be watching. And who knows? Because there could be, the interesting thing is there could be other events we don't know about that the 1290 and the 1260 are related to. I don't think it's coincidental that 1290, before the date Apophis is supposed to hit, is Yom Kippur. I mean, we know God does things on feast days, just like in October of 2023. So to me, that's strikingly interesting that it's on that date. I mean, 1290 could have been, a week before. It could have been a month before. I mean, that would have been not so much interesting, but because it's happening that day, I think we need to be watching and paying attention to this coming October. There are a lot of people saying, you probably have heard it and seen it, a lot of people are saying this October is a big deal. Many have speculated of things that are going to happen of various degrees. So we'll see. It's I've got more things to show you. We'll see what the heavens keep showing, and we just watch. We watch to see these events that are showing in the heavens, how they match with the events that are happening here on Earth. Okay, so thank you for reminding him of that, Sonia, because I would have forgotten about the harbinger.
Yeah. Oh, you're welcome. It's just I know that maybe new people are here, so that would be awesome. That we just, yeah. Thanks,
Yes.
Brother Mark.
Thank you. Okay, so this next image is a dual retrograde, which is very, very interesting. And it's happening right here with the sun in the bull. You have Mercury and Venus doing a dual retrograde. You can see that they're now in the position of going backwards or backing up. They've already come to the stop and they're backing up. And this is happening in May 31st, 2028, which is basically what, a week later than the previous image that I showed you. So this is happening May 22nd when Maholtz goes into the breaker, and then what is that? 11 days later, 10 days later, 9 days later, you have this dual retrograde with Mars in the bull. And of course, Mars has always been depicted as this war planet. So what that means, I don't know, but we need to be paying. May is going to be it appears to be, there's a lot happening in May of 2028. And it's something for us to be taking note of and paying attention of. What does that mean? So, yeah, very, very. And Venus is also considered the bright and morning star. And so we'll be watching and taking note of what that could possibly mean. The next image that I have is reminding you of the stele that we talked about that's going to happen in February of 2027, where the image, I'll just give you a reminder of the stele, which is this image here of when Soho bends around the sun, and you've got the comet Soho with the moon and the sun here, basically recreating this image on this stele in 2027. So that's what is that? That's not even a year prior to this 2028 event. And Soho always comes before Maholtz does. But what I found interesting is, now that I know that Saturn is representing the Hebrews, the Jews, here you have during this time of February 27th, 2027, you have Apophis is sitting there in Pisces, is where it's at. It's still roving. And Saturn, the Jews, they're right there in so we've got the Saturn, which represents the Jews, Pisces representing the nation of Israel, and Apophis in here. Really, really interesting. And I mentioned to Cyrus and everybody and Sonia before the show that, and I'll show you some of the information I found that supports this, that this Saturn does represent the Jewish people. And so for it to be here in Pisces from, I think, February of 2025 until 2028, it's going to be for nearly 3.5 years, is really interesting, because we'll see all of this stuff happening that seems to be pointing to the nation of Israel and the Jews, which is what's happening now. I mean, that's the news is all about that. So very, very interesting stuff. All right, so the next slide is just the reminder of the stele, Comet Soho in February of 2027. So we just talked about that. And then this next slide is Atlas C 2024 G3, which will be coming into the slain goat for the redeemed on January 15th, 2025. So that's just a few weeks away. And so I'd love to hear what Brother Cyrus has to say about that. The thing is going forward he's already given me a prelude to April and possibly, the April timeline, but I'd love to see what maybe January looks like. But this slain goat for the redeemed, this is a comet that's moving through there, and I'll continue to watch and see the pattern that it goes through, but this could be a comet to be watching as well. I haven't seen it before, so it's kind of a new comet. You can see by the date, just recently found. And so we'll just keep a watch and an eye on that comet. So the next slide is also Atlas C 2024 G3, making its way through the slain goat for the redeemed. And this next slide is January 18th, 2026, and it's the comet Wursthos C 2024 E1, and it's coming into down at the bottom under the constellation of Sagittarius. The conqueror, going forth to conquer, is the biblical name for it, just underneath the hooves. And we can see that there is Mercury, the moon, Venus, and Mars, and the sun. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the 7 appearing right here at this time. So this is another thing to watch out for. This is the comet coming into the conquering king, going forth to conquer. And you've got the war planet there. You've got the bright morning star. You've got the moon. You've got all those things happening right here in this point. So something to be watching and paying attention to in January, basically next year. Basically about a year and a month away, a year and two to 3 weeks away. So very interesting. All right. So the next slide is the information that I was going to share with you about that I found. And some of that's cut off. It shouldn't have been, but this says in this, the Zondervan Illustrated Biblical Background Commentary says one widely possibility is an unusual conjunction of planets that occurred on May 27th, 7 BC. According to this theory, Jupiter, representing the primary deity in the Babylonian astrology, meaning back and then they knew that Jupiter was a king planet. It represented kingship. So when Jupiter came close to Saturn, representing the Jews, in the constellation Pisces, representing Palestine or Israel, the Magi referred to Jupiter as the star of the king they were seeking, and the association with Saturn and Pisces showed them among which nation, the Jews, and where territory, Palestine, to look for him. And then in New Unger's dictionary, it says there was a conspicuous conjunction of planets 3 years before the birth of Moses in the sign of Pisces, and that another would occur before the Messiah's birth. This was 50 years before Kepler published his discovery of the conjunction of the planets Jupiter, Saturn, and Mars in the sign of Pisces at the birth of Yeshua. So in other words, there was this understanding among the Hebrews for decades, for millennia, that Moses was born when Jupiter, Saturn, and Mars were in the constellation of Pisces, and there was a conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn. And this prophecy went forth that the Messiah would be born when this occurred again. And so Deuteronomy 18:15, it says, Yahweh your Elohim will raise up for you a prophet like me from among you. And so I was thinking, in this scripture, could it mean in like birth? In other words, in likeness also, in the way that it appeared in the heavens, could that same likeness also be appearing in the same way with Yeshua's birth? Just a thought I have. Could be wrong, don't know, but it's very interesting that there's another likeness here of Yeshua and Moses and what was happening at the time of the birth, according to ancient history and documents and what was told among the Hebrews back in the first century and before.
Brother Mark?
Okay. Yes.
Remember how before Yeshua was born, Maholtz came in that particular pattern?
Yes.
Does that happen then at the same time around Moses's birth?
I think that Joe had asked me to look at that date, and I believe that it was. So I know I looked at the flood. I know I looked at whenever they were taken into captivity, when the temple was destroyed. It was like 7 different places, and they were all within that, either a year and a half. Most of them were, Maholtz came a year and a half before. I think there was one instance where it was a year and a half after. So, yeah, it's very, very interesting. And so something to obviously pay attention to. I did want to mention that what led me on to find this about the Saturn and Jupiter conjunction in Pisces and how it relates to the Jews and the nation of Israel is due to a show that I had saw. Let me see if I can get this to cooperate.
Because that was my next question, was about how does Saturn relate to the Jews? I wasn't sure.
It is so on a show that I watched, Janie Duvall, her show, she had Alexis Katz on, and she had mentioned that Saturn was interpreted to be the Jews and Pisces was the land of Israel. So I went onto my program and I typed in Saturn and the Jews, and these two documents popped up. Just typing in that reference, and I was pretty shocked to find a supporting reference to that claim. And so I thought, well, we'll put it on here and put it on the show so people can see that this was an idea among the Hebrews back in prior to the first century. And
Wow.
People were watching for things to happen. And so now that we can see that, let's just say, let's go forward. If that's the case, we really need to be paying attention to where Saturn is and the constellation of Pisces. And that's why I'm saying, for Saturn to be in Pisces for the next 3 to 3.5 years, we need to be watching that. And we need to be watching where Jupiter is, where we need to watch where the moon and Mercury, Mars, and Venus, all these others are at different months going forward, because this is apparently playing out to be watching Israel and the Jews. So very interesting.
Isn't it Saturn that has that hexagonal storm on it?
I don't know.
There's a hexagonal right at the end of Saturn. There's a 6-sided hexagonal, I think it's a storm, isn't it? That's on the pole.
Is that Jupiter?
Oh, I thought it was Saturn.
Saturn's the one that's got the rings going around
Saturn's got a hex. I'm just looking at it now. Yeah, definitely. It's got a hexagonal that you can Google it. Saturn's hexagon. There's a hexagon on Saturn. And isn't there a hexagon inside the Star of David or something? Anyway, I don't know. It's just, is that related potentially?
Well, that's very interesting. Maybe that's exactly a possibility. And maybe the guys that are monitoring the show can, maybe if they find that image, maybe they can post it up for everybody to see. But I know that I'll be looking at that when the show is over and see what I can see from that. So thank you for sharing that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. The next slide that I have is, remember, the Jews in Judea. So we have a retrograde of Mars, of Mercury and Venus happening right here right at where Saturn is in Pisces, March the 16th to April the 13th, 2025. While that's going on, Jupiter, the king star, is in between the horns of the bull. So this is another interesting thing to watch for, because again, here we have the Jews and Israel represented by Saturn and Pisces, and we have a double retrograde happening over it that takes place from March 6th to April 13th, which I know Cyrus is going to talk about that because he shared that a little bit before, and Jupiter in the middle of the horns of the bull. So something very interesting to be paying attention to during that time of basically leading up to this Passover time, Pesach. So redemption, what could mean? We'll find out as we watch and pay attention. Okay, my next slide is, we have February 20th, 6 BC, and we have, this is that sign I mentioned to you where Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn had just done the retrograde, and now you see Mars coming into the picture here in Pisces after Jupiter and Saturn have done the triple retrograde. You can also see the moon is right here as well with them, and this is happening 9 months from the crossing of Jupiter. So the image on the right is the image of Jupiter and Saturn crossing, doing the triple retrograde in the bands of Pisces. So that's what giving you that image. Now, what's cool is the white line that you see is the horizon, and the sun hasn't risen yet because we're looking. I'm sorry, the sun has just set. We're looking west. So if you're in Babylon and you're looking west at the setting of the sun, you're seeing this image. And so it in the text it says we saw him from the east. In other words, from the east, we're looking and seeing his image. They're looking towards the west, and they see that right after sunset. And so the last crossing is December 4th, 7 BCE. Second crossing, October 1st. The first crossing, May 28th, and this was recorded in the Babylonian records. June 3rd, 7 BC is Shavuot. 9 months and 2 weeks later is equinox and first of first month. So very interesting things happening during this time, this event, that all point to a king and time events happening. Is just very stunning to me. So I thought I'd put this up and show you. So yeah, very cool stuff. Okay, the next image that I want to show you is November 6th of 6th through the 18th of 2026. And we can see that Mercury is doing a retrograde over the sun. Venus is doing a retrograde over the barley in the woman's hand, the Virgin's hand. And Jupiter is about to do a crossing conjunction over the king planet, is about to go over the king star, with Mars following on its heel. And you can see that during that time, November 6th, 18th, Mars catches Jupiter, and we have both of them over the king star, the king planet and the Mars, the war planet, over the king star, while Mercury and Venus are doing their retrograde in the bottom image, in the bottom left hand of the image. So, and Venus is basically right over Spica, right over this star that's called the barley or the seed. So very, and this is all while Saturn is in the Pisces. So we got this all about the Jews, and hear all this happening with the king. I don't know. I get excited about it because this is telling us stuff, and we need to be watching for next November of 2026. Okay. The next image that I want to show you is March the 20th of 2034, first day of the first month. And we have Jupiter coming in. The moon has just crossed over the sun, creating an eclipse that Israel will see. And this, we've talked about this before, the very dark part of the eclipse passes right over the Hathor temple. But this is March 20th, 2034, first day of the first month. And we have Venus in the band, Jupiter coming into Pisces, the king planet, and this event happening. Total eclipse. So very interesting. King star. Yeah. So basically, when this blacks out, what do you think you're going to see? The next two brightest things in the heavens are right next to the eclipse. You got Venus and Jupiter is probably going to be like very, very, pinpoint, like boom, here it is for you to look at right there as the eclipse is happening, and Israel's going to see it. So very, very interesting moment.
Isn't that the one that happens after the August 14th, 2033, Maholtz comes with
Yes.
the exact same pattern that happened with Yeshua's birth, right? So,
Yes.
so the pattern that Maholtz goes through at Yeshua's birth, the same pattern happens again August 14th, 2033, which is the Harbinger comment before the March 20th, 2034, right?
Yes, and you reminded me of something that I'll probably put it in a future show down the road. Is that there's another comet called Maholtz, and it's The one that we are always talking about is 96P, or Maholtz 96. And so there's another one called Maholtz 96P, and I have found that it does the same exact pattern as the other Maholtz does on a different date, right through that same sign as it happened on Yeshua's birth. For two comets to make that same path in the 30s is pretty amazing.
No way. Just when you were saying that in my head, I'm just going, no way. I'm just thinking, oh my gosh, that is crazy.
Yeah,
that is crazy. So,
it's like maybe it's like what God tells us, at 2 or 3 things a matter is confirmed. So we have a comet with almost the same name, just a letter added, making the same exact path as it did when Yeshua was born, at 2 different dates. So it's like, here it is. And if you didn't catch it the first time, here it is again. Pay attention. And maybe that's why you have the triple conjunctions. Here's the matter is confirmed with 3 witnesses, 3 crossovers. So yeah, very, very interesting. Thanks for, you helped me remember that I had completely forgot about, but I need to make sure that I get that ready for the next time we do something. Yeah.
No, so hang on. So if you have the Maholtz and then the other Maholtz, I mean, when you do that, can we differentiate them so that we can separate them? Because if that's okay.
Yeah, I'll put the names of them and put 2 different graphics side by side, the pattern of both of them, the path that they take, and the dates.
Okay, that'd be awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so this next slide that I wanted to show you is what I'd already said. From now till March of 2028, Saturn will be in Pisces. So it'll be about the Jews and the land of Israel. And then I just want to remind everybody that since we're talking about these retrogrades and how important it was in Pisces, so you've got the red blood moons in 32, 33, and 34 happening on feast dates, Passover and Sukkot. And in 36, you've got Saturn doing a triple conjunction over the king star. So this is the Jews triple retrograding over the king. What does that mean in 36? And then in 38, you've got Jupiter, the king planet, doing a triple conjunction over the king star. So here you have all of this stuff happening. And in 2040, all 7 of the visible heavenly bodies are in the Virgin at Yom Kippur. And you have Saturn and Jupiter doing a conjunction, just like they did back in Pisces in 7 BC. So a lot happening there in the 30s. And that's why I keep looking at that, because these triple conjunctions, as it happened with Moses' birth, as it happened with Yeshua's birth, they're very significant. And for it to happen over the king star is a very, very rare event. So something to be mindful of, keeping our attention on. Okay. The last 2 images I have, then I'm going to be done, is I just want to show everybody, these are the retrogrades of Mars going forward. So you can see the dates. This will be for if you want to check and see where Mars is at whenever it's doing a retrograde. These are the years, and it tells you the constellation that it's doing it in. So you can see in 20. Boy, that got small. You can't see the final date of the year. I'll have to resend that. That got on mine. It shows it, but on yours it doesn't. I don't know why. So here Mars is doing these triple retrogrades, or just a retrograde in these constellations on these dates. And then the final image is the retrogrades of Venus, when Venus is doing a retrograde, and what year and what constellation that it's happening in going forward. 2025 going forward. So for you to be observing and watching and looking and saying, okay, we see if we can make some connections there on when these retrogrades are happening and in what constellations what does that mean? So, and I'll be checking these retrogrades to see if some of these are happening in the same time when Saturn is there, and see if we can make some connections. So that's it.
Absolutely. That's awesome. Thanks for that, Brother Mark. Oh my gosh,
Yes.
more to go. I'm going to have to go back over this again to get it right in my head, because there was a lot of information there that,
Yes.
and tying that in with the previous information to try and make a story out of it, or try and find the story, I guess. And that, oh my gosh, Maholtz, that one blows my mind every single time. The first time you said that back in, I think, was it 2022 or something, when you said,
2022.
yeah, when you were talking about it going through the same pattern as the birth of Yeshua, and it's happening again in 2033. And that just blew my mind. And now that there's a second comet doing it, it's
With the same name.
with the same name. Oh my goodness gracious. That's just crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
It's kind of like, yeah, look here. Look
Yeah.
here.
Amen to that.
Yeah. Okay. Oh my goodness gracious. Okay. So, Brother Cyrus, let's do it.
Yeah. I'm kind of blown away here, and just awestruck, I guess. And I'll get to it later, but some of the phenomena that Brother Mark talked about match up with some of the dates that I have for this coming spring. So, wow, that that's just unbelievable, Brother Mark. That so much is going on. And I was reading about Atlas C. I think it was either yesterday or today. Might have been early morning. And I thought, wow, they're saying that's a negative 3.5. That's what Venus is, or right in that area. So we may get to see that. Well, not us, but Sonia might get to see it because it's in the southern hemisphere.
Woohoo.
So, and it may actually miss the sun, or the sun may pull it in, and that'll be the end of it. But yeah, that's amazing. It really is. Well, what I wanted to do, if you're ready for it, we had our meeting earlier this year after I posted an article on Codgerville, and it was my uh, looking at things that could potentially take place this year, and I called it 2024, the year of chaos. And obviously nothing happened. Let me review some of the things that happened. Um, Looking at right now, look back to January, which is when that article was written, and think about the things that have happened uh, geopolitically, financially, things of that nature that have taken place this year. And I'm sure everybody's thinking, wow, it's gotten better since then. But in quick review, the government of France has collapsed. The government of Germany has collapsed. The government of the Republic of Georgia has collapsed. The government of South Korea has collapsed. And the government of Romania elected their own Donald Trump, and the Supreme Court nullified the election, and their government has collapsed. Great Britain is near collapse. They got a Keir Starmer got a vote of no confidence, so now they've got to reorganize the government again. So Canada is near collapse. In fact, Trudeau is getting cursed openly wherever he goes to try to open his mouth. People are cursing him. Let's see. India is a basket case. Really, it is. Syria has collapsed, and President Bashar al-Assad and his family are given asylum in Russia. And it just so happens that the leader of HTS, what is his name, Abu Muhammad al-Jalani, turns out to be a Mossad mole who is also a Jew and has promised that no attacks would be allowed against Israel from Syria. Um, let's see, Pakistan is unstable. It is a nuclear nation. So you got India is unstable. Pakistan's unstable. They're both nuclear weapons nations. And I think it was last night or the night before our time, the Taliban in Afghanistan declared war on Pakistan. So, do we have chaos this year? Okay. Not, and I haven't talked about politics, and I'm not. Everybody's familiar with what's going on politically. But, and I think I haven't even looked at the article since I wrote it. Um, but I think I said it was like a 50-50 chance of kinetic war for America. So, does it go up? Does it go down? Um, I believe it goes up. I believe the lead in to the cycle that's coming up this spring. Remember, I've said in past meetings, we have to get past October 2024 before I'll have some idea of whether or not I can begin doing my calculations that I used to do, usually to 6 digits. Um, and that would be if the solar cycle is diminishing. As of today, it's still increasing. Okay. Now, why is this cycle so persistent? Nobody knows. If you go back to November 26th of this year, you'll see that the Earth, the entire Earth, was hit by a 40 TeV burst of cosmic energy. 40 TeV, tera electron volts, is what that is large enough to cause mutations in plant life and animals. So nobody felt different that day, I know. We were oblivious to it. But it was recorded, it was cosmic energy. Now, as I've mentioned in the past, when you have a very active solar cycle, it helps block us from incoming cosmic energy. So imagine what this 40 TeV burst of cosmic energy could have amounted to had we not had such a strong solar cycle. So I believe we were kind of being protected by this active solar cycle. And going back and looking over my information in my notes, it's been over 3 years since we have had a day that did not have solar flares or any, sunspots. Okay, it's over 3 years now. So we're being bombarded by solar energy, luckily, or rather, should I say, maybe this is Jehovah's way of putting his shield in front of us. He goes before us with a shield. He puts his shield before us to block some of these very strong, powerful cosmic bursts. And they could come from a quasar, they could come from a galactic flare, they could come from a black hole that is basically regurgitating energy outside. They don't know. I don't know. I know Yah does, but I don't. So let's look at what we have coming up. Uh, like I said, some of these dates are kind of coincidental. We have a lunar eclipse coming up March 13th and 14th. The night of the 13th, the morning of the 14th. It's also a blood moon. And that was also right in those dates that Brother Mark had for one of the phenomena occurring was, I don't remember what it was. It was March 7th or so and April 29th or whatever. So we see this next cycle is going to be centered almost during this phenomena that Brother Mark had talked about. So that's the lunar eclipse. It's going to be a total lunar eclipse. It's also going to be a blood moon. The solar eclipse is only going to be a partial, 88 to 90%. Okay, I mean, that's almost total. The lunar eclipse is going to affect North America, the western half of South America, all of Latin America, and that's about it. Goes out into the Pacific. The solar eclipse. Now this is a little bit more telling since we're still under this dominant solar cycle. The solar eclipse will be affecting Western Europe, well, Western and Eastern Europe, and Ukraine and Russia, also Northwest Africa, New England, and northeastern Canada, or should I say eastern Canada. Okay, everything north of New England of the United States. Greenland's been making the news here every day. And the Arctic Circle, the Arctic Sea, in the North Atlantic. It's north. I mean, this lunar eclipse just has it in the Western Hemisphere. The solar eclipse has it in the Western Hemisphere, but it's all in the Northern Hemisphere. So this may be telling us that, and remember, we're still in the peak cycle, solar cycles, solar cycle 25. We may see things get really wild in the United States, Canada, but I believe it's going to be Europe and Northwest Asia. Okay, because remember, Russia is primarily Asia. So is Israel. Israel's Asia. Everything in that area, Middle East area, is Asia, but they're not going to be affected by the solar eclipse. Just the northern hemisphere will be. So we're looking at basically a cycle that's going to run from February 21st. Now, we had another cycle that really hit February 2 years ago. And that's when I was kind of making a point of saying, things aren't looking good for Russia and Ukraine right now. And then we throw in this lunar eclipse and this solar eclipse that's going to hit both Russia and Ukraine. To me, it looks like war. Brother Joe's going, nah, I don't see it. I don't see it. And of course, February 22nd or 24th, the war broke out. What could we see this time? I don't know. But this part of the cycle, which is the solar part, is affecting Ukraine and Russia. So once again, we may see war, or who knows, maybe we'll see peace. Because the solar, when I'm looking at a solar eclipse and a very strong solar cycle, to me that tells me that that's the the cause or the one that's going to dominate men's thinking. And I see lunar eclipses. This is when people tend to lose it, tend to get nutty, men more than women, just because women have more experience with the moon than men do. Okay, so I'm looking at this saying solar cycle hitting Europe, Russia, Ukraine, maybe, hopefully, we'd see peace, but it might really get wild during this period of time. So, let's see. We're looking at the first part of February, February 7th, being the beginning of the cycle. The next inflection date, I used to call them, I give you the specific percentages of increase. I can't do that anymore. It's not possible for me to do it. But the next date that you would expect it to go up would be February 21st. And then after that, March 6th. Well, that was, I think, one of the dates that Brother Mark gave. Okay. And so that goes into the date of the lunar eclipse, the 13th and the 14th. And to find the peak of the cycle, you get midway between the lunar and the solar, and that is the peak of the cycle, and that is March 21st. I think that was another date that Brother Mark might have had, it was 23rd. Okay? So when I saw that, when we were in the waiting room and I saw that date pop up, it's like, what in the world? Okay. As we get out of the cycle, okay, the peak, that'll run to, let's see, March 29th, first week of April. It'll be April 4th. It'll be when it should diminish. I don't think it will, but it should diminish on April 4th. And then April 18th would be the next point that it should diminish. And then if it were an ordinary cycle in an ordinary solar cycle, I would say it would be over with by April 24th. And it was just interesting that there was so much going on in Brother Mark's notes that corresponded with my notes that it's like, I got to go back and look at this and try to figure out what the heck's going on. So, what does it mean as far as these overlapping signs? I don't know. I wish I did. I'm not that smart. And if Brother Mark doesn't know, I surely don't know.
With Joe, with you mentioning Europe and Israel and Asia and all that stuff during that time, and Saturn is going to be in Pisces, which is the Jews and the nation of Israel. That's pretty interesting. That's That's a big connection.
It is. I just don't know how to make it. I wish I did, but it's really, it's out of my league. I don't know how to make that connection. But I do not see any correction taking place as far as chaos getting better. You have people in Las Vegas that make up odds on, well, the odds that so and so will win the race, or such and such football game will win a particular game, and they set points on this. I know nothing about all that, but I would put the chance of America getting involved in a kinetic war between 60 and 75% in 2025. I hope I'm wrong. I really do. So it's it's a time of transition for America. We're leaving one administration. We're going into another administration. Um, how readily will a certain group of people accept the new administration? I don't know. Um, we were talking the other night, and it's like, and I told Vaughn, it's about 24 days, I think, or so until uh, President Trump is inaugurated, and I'm going to be on edge 25 days, in other words, until he's inaugurated, because he is a threat to the forces of evil in America. I mean, that's the way I see it. And I'm not
Yeah.
saying he's a saint or he's a Messiah or our Savior, nothing like that. He's a man who's got a very business-like mind that sees things differently than a politician does, and he tends to have a certain uh, moral compass. I'm not sure, you know, how to rate it or anything, but he does have his own values, and so I think that there's going to be some serious unrest in America at the change of the administration. And I'm sure all of you have heard the talk about, well, we have a new Department of Government, whatever it is, efficiency coming for, I think, a 2 year period of time. And the two main leaders of that department have said, yeah, if we have to cut off agencies and fire all the people, we'll do it. Okay, these are career bureaucrats. Okay, I used to work with these people. They don't take talk like that easily. Remember, President Kennedy fired the head of the CIA and refused to do what the CIA wanted him to do in Cuba and then in Vietnam. And he had even signed an executive order saying all U.S. troops would be withdrawn from Vietnam January 1st, 1965. And they killed him. And I don't make any bones about it. I know they killed him. They killed him. And so this is a threat to bureaucrats all up and down the government. Every department head, every swamp critter like John Bolton and Bill Barr and all these people. Uh, uh, I hate to be critical of a man that's helped me, but Jim Clapper and John Brennan. These people are deathly afraid of being held accountable for what they've done. And so I just don't see it being a smooth, easy transition. I hope I'm wrong. I really do. But it's going to be an interesting year. It's going to be, what can I say? I hope I get to see the end of it. It's just going to be one of those situations to where we're going to have to wait till we get to the end of it to be able to look back. And I hope I can say, man, I was 100% wrong. Y'all just forget it, But please, Jehovah's in charge. I'm no wizard or necromancer or anything. I'm just a retired farmer in Southeast Texas. And I'm telling you what I see as possibilities. Okay. And Mark, he's actually reading signs in the heaven. And only two I'm looking at are the moon and the sun. but they were given to us for signs and appointed times. And these appointed times are for Jehovah to do things in his creation. Okay? So to me, that's exciting. You know, I take some of these dates that Brother Mark gave us and it's like, I'm going to be watching. I
Yeah,
want to know.
yeah. You mentioned that the election and the transition of office. So that comet that I had mentioned, Atlas C 2024, comes into play on January 15th and is moving uh, out of the way all the way through the 30th of the month. So we'll be taking note of the path that it's going and what kind of, I didn't see anything significant about the places that it was moving after it left the slain goat for the redeemed. But, you know, maybe we'll learn something new that we can add to our understanding. Yeah.
Yeah. I see Stephen put down Lola Ra there in the chat. And yes, I'm not saying any of this to try to scare anybody. You know, whenever the angel appears to somebody in Scripture, he would say, Lola Ra, no fear, no fear. Our Creator, our Heavenly Father, is in charge. That's where we should put our faith and confidence right there. Is it's all in his hand.
What's the
So
other Hebrew word? Al Tirah?
what was that?
Fear not, isn't it Al Tirah?
Fear not, Lola Ra.
Yeah.
Yeah, no fear. I spell it Iyrah. But really, that's all that I have. Like I said, it was just going to be a wrap up of what I wrote in January and give you what I see as possibilities for 2025. And
Lots of people leaving the U.S. or claiming they're leaving the U.S. They want out of here before the transition of power.
right, right. Um, you know, when you start hearing about where some of these people have homes, and it's like, why would a former president have a home in Dubai? I think it is. They're a non-extradition treaty country. Why would that be important for a former president? You know, I think it was Dubai or Bahrain. It was one of the Arab Emirates anyway in that area. And so it's like people are leaving the country, and guess what? Non-extradition countries are getting a lot of them. Um, so I don't know. I think there's some guilty consciences at work. But anyway, um, it's you know I know Brother Joe has exact timelines, and I do not. Uh, I just assume watch it play out. I'm not one of those that open up a who done it and look at the last page to see. Okay, now I know, and I like to read the whole story, and
Yeah.
so that's what I do. I'm here for the whole story,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Brother Joe, his research is just playing on out, just like he said,
Yes.
and it's interesting to see so much of this just a coincidence happening at the same time. And of course, everybody knows I'm being facetious. So, but like I've said many, many times, you can't make this stuff up. You really can't.
All right, Sonia, you're up.
Oh, I wasn't sure if that was everything. Um, there was that. I totally agree. I mean, the stuff that's happening at the moment is completely insane. And brother Cyrus, when you were talking about the things that happened in 2024, I mean, there's just been so much. I mean, apart from the war in Russia and Ukraine and the what's happening in Israel and
Yes.
all the things over there. I mean, the stuff that's happening in that area is just mind blowing. Uh, and everything else around the world. I mean, there's just so much going on in every corner of of the earth. I mean, it just feels like nowhere is exempt, really. There's no reprieve, I guess. It's almost like there's pressure and more pressure, and just just things that are happening in general to put more pressure on us. Um, and the loss of privacy, even that we have. I was watching something yesterday because my husband had to travel, and I was trying to find quickly trying to find some information to find out what's going on with airports and things stuff like that. And I saw this professional person talking about that in Europe. Apparently, they're bringing in all the digital. They're going to be taking all your fingerprints. They're going to be, there's just everything. There's more and more. Um, I guess they want more and more information on everyone, and
Yeah.
there's less and less privacy. Um, and yeah, it just feels like it's a squeeze. I don't know how to explain it, but it's a squeeze. It feels like you're being squeezed.
It's
I
getting
don't know.
tight.
I I had a friend of mine, 85-year-old grandmother, flew from Texas to California. They stopped her at the airport and did the usual TSA thing. They stopped her from the TSA checkpoint before she got into the concourse and checked her again. Then she got on a plane, and when she got to LAX, they checked her twice before she got out. And at the same week, it wasn't the same day, but the same week, I had a 26-year-old Muslim Indonesian girl come in from Indonesia with two big suitcases, and they didn't check a thing. You know,
Uh, it,
tell me
it's
where the logic is.
it's deliberate. It's deliberate. I can tell you what. Okay, you want an example? I don't know if I told you this, but when I came to visit your country in 2023 last year, oh my goodness, I before I even left Sydney, I the bomb squad checked me. Victor's going, what? Then your country designated me to be checked for a drug test. And I'm like, are you serious? And he was like, I can't believe this is happening to us. Then I was searched. Then I managed to get through to the first checkpoint in this. This is before that I even got to the States. And but the thing was, they actually picked your country picked me to be searched in Sydney before I actually went. Then I got to the US and I was searched. I was drug swabbed again. And then again, every single point that I went, I had 3 checkpoints. I was searched and triple searched at every single one. And then on the way back, I was like fully groped, the whole lot, just groin the lot. My husband was going, I cannot believe this is happening to you. And I just went, yeah, I can't believe it either. They picked on me. I think they pick on me because I'm white, single, or white female. And so I'm less likely to cause a fuss and say, well, you're being, racist and discriminatory against me for picking me. If I had been anyone else, they probably would have. And I was just, I just couldn't believe it. And by the time I got home, I felt thoroughly violated. But just every checkpoint, I'd been groped or drug swabbed. Every single one, I think I got drug swabbed. So I don't know how many drug swabs I had, but I had plenty of them. So yeah, I I can relate. Oh, and by the way, coming in, I had all my fingerprints taken at
Oh my
customs.
gosh.
Yep, all my fingerprints. And I'm just there going, I cannot believe this is happening. So yeah, that was not fun.
Well, I hope you
And
didn't say you didn't want to come back.
I didn't say anything. And I was looking at the place where I had to put my fingerprints, and I'm thinking, that is disgusting. Every single person's had their fingerprints there. So I wanted to clean it, but obviously I couldn't. So but yeah, it was pretty invasive. And from my understanding of what's coming with travel, it's going to be far more invasive than that. They're bringing in a lot more uh, invasive things this way to try and make it, inverted commas, easier for people to travel. So the things that they're bringing in are more facial recognition, and in Europe in particular, facial recognition and stuff like that. So there's going to be an awful lot more things where they can get information on you, essentially. Yeah. Yes, it's interesting, but I mean that's the tip of the iceberg. I mean the things that are happening around the world are just mind blowing, mind blowing, and it all seems to relate and tie in with scripture as well. You know, you look at the dates, like where you had the dates up there, and the star constellations and what's going to be happening, and everything seems to tie in. And someone had asked what was the what 1290 days. Well, that's the prophecy from Daniel. So those dates that were on that slide, if anyone didn't understand what those dates were, they were from Daniel. So the 1335 days, the 1290 days, and the 1260 days, they're all from Daniel. And so we have got a question. So Robert's asking, do y'all both feel war is evident in 25 according to the signs, or famine weakening all nations first?
I see famine already building.
Yeah.
It's already building. We don't have to wait for it. We're seeing food capacity diminished. Bird flu. They use a PCR test to determine a bird has uh, bird flu, and then they kill 100,000 chickens. That's going to cause a problem. And they're doing it over and over and over. So we're being set up for a famine. Do I see war? Like I said, I think the chances of it could be between 60 and 75% possibility. Is it a certainty? No, it's definitely not a certainty. But everything is the energy. Let me say it that way. The energy is building to make conditions just right for war.
Yes. And I
For
agree
me,
with what you said. Sorry about the famine. It's been quite a while. I mean, you've had the egg, the where where the chickens were killed, then you had no eggs, and it's not just that, but it's everything. It's the food, the droughts, the I mean, I guess most people don't really notice it in some ways too much, but it has to come from somewhere. And so a lot of stuff's being imported if you're in a affluent country. But in some of these other countries, like Sri Lanka, where they stormed the palace essentially because they're starving, uh, yeah, it's going to happen. I believe that it's going to be felt in the less affluent countries first before we will feel it, but we'll just be paying a lot higher
Yeah.
prices for it. Sorry, Brother Mark.
I know I was just going to say, for me, obviously, war is happening in other places. And I was telling Brother Joe and Sonia before the show started that with this vacancy of power in Syria, Turkey is looking at and considering moving in and taking advantage of this vacancy of power in Syria. And
Yes.
that's a really big deal because Turkey is a big player here in these last days. And so it's to me, I've had my eye on Turkey for a long time, and I'm just watching to see what happens with them and the relation with Israel. But Israel certainly is taking care of business. They're getting a lot of flack, but they're taking care of business. This is an opportunity. I mean, if you're Israel and you've had this issue, if you stopped now, you know that you're going to have to do this all over again at some point.
Yeah.
You might as well finish it while you're here. It'd be like, you've got to dig it. You've got to dig a septic hole for your septic tank, and you only dig it a quarter of the way, but you've got to have a septic tank. You're going to have to get back, and it's going to fill back up again with dirt and everything. You might as well get it done now. So while you're doing it, but I want to remind everybody that we're in the fifth cycle on the Jubilee cycle, the fifth week, and the second year, coming into the second year. So, you know, there's 6 years left of this 5th week, and then we enter the 6th week. So if this is the last Jubilee, time is getting short.
So
Well,
just to
we,
remind, I was going to say, just to remind people who don't know about the Jubilee cycles. So the Jubilee is the 50 years, and there are the 7-year cycles within that 50 years. So the 5th cycle is the 5th lot of 7 years within the 50-year cycle. I'm hoping I'm making sense. Maybe, did that make sense, you guys? Does someone want to explain it better? No.
oh, I'd say get one of Brother Joe's books and read it.
There's actually, well, the
So,
calendar is helpful. The calendars, the free calendar you can download is really helpful to understand it.
yeah,
So you can go to the sightedmoon.com website, and there on there is a like newsletters and archives, and you can find the the calendar, and you can download the calendar for free, and it's got the how all the cycles work, and yeah, it's very helpful. Um,
well,
I'm just I'm just going to let you know there's another question by Donald. It says, "Have you heard anything about the sun's poles shifting recently? Was it this
yeah,
year?"
it hasn't completely shifted. What it does is it makes sways back and forth. Okay, and then at some point, it could have happened maybe in December. I've been so preoccupied that I have not been able to keep up with all the stuff daily. Um, we've had a lot of things going on in December, so it may have actually completed the flip um, in December. I'm not sure, but yes, it was in the process of flipping in November. But
Yes.
just so yesterday afternoon, we were talking. We were in Ezekiel 38, and so we were talking about who are these people that are mentioned as coming against Israel. And if you look, they're they're using the grandsons and great grandsons of Noah and where they settled. And where did they settle? Well, they settled around the Caucasus Mountains and around the Black Sea, going back to the east. So these are, Gomer, Togarmah, Yuvan, all these others. They are basically Turkey and some of the Stan countries uh, that are called the kings of the north. Because the idea, people talk about Gog and Magog, being Russia, but there's no precedent for that. If you Google the Gog Magog festival, and where will it bring you to? London, England, where they have a festival for Gog and Magog every year. That was the two giants that ruled that area. Okay, Gog and Magog. And so they carry big giant effigies through the street, through the city of London, and celebrate the Gog and Magog festival. It says Rosh. Oh, that means Russia. No, it doesn't. Okay, go to Genesis 10. Remember, prophecy is rooted in Torah. Go to Genesis 10, and you can find them. They're out there. There's maps of where Noah's children, grandchildren, great grandchildren settled. And that's the list of the 70 nations as they affect, or as, there's 70 nations, and then there's Israel. Okay, and that brings you to Deuteronomy 32, 8, and 9. And I'd say use either the Dead Sea Scroll Bible or, let me see, the Septuagint, because it got changed dramatically in the Greek. And so most English translations are inaccurate. But it says that the children of Yaakov are Jehovah's inheritance, and he gave the nations to the sons of Elohim. So the angels that rule over these 70 nations are the ones who are you see in, Psalms 82, that are ruling unjustly, and they will be judged in the future, and they will die like men. So all of this is in Scripture. He said, Shaul says, I would not have you ignorant, brethren. The answers are in Scripture. We don't have to make them up. They're there. And so these kings of the north are Turkey and just north of Turkey, east and west as well. So
Perfect.
Brother Mark's absolutely right to say we need to be watching Turkey.
Yeah. Wow. There's another question by Robert. It said, "Do y'all see the nation of Israel will be almost defeated due to signs mentioned by Mark?"
Um, what was that? I missed that.
Do you?
You can see it down the bottom now. It's been highlighted. Do y'all see
Okay,
the nation of Israel will almost be defeated due to signs mentioned by Mark?
I'll give you my personal opinion. Yes, I do. I do not. I'm a contrarian. Remember that. Okay. I see that Israel will be defeated between now and 2044, 2045. I don't know when, but I see that they will. Because Israel becoming a nation in a day has not happened yet. Okay? The present nation of Israel started in 1918 with the Balfour Declaration, a letter written from Lord Balfour to Lord Rothschild, stating, as per your instructions, a homeland for the Zionists has been established in Palestine. And it took 30 more years for that to take place, and in 1948 it happened. That's not in a day. Okay, that's 30 years. I see the iteration of the next Israel will be in a day, and the proclamation will be from Yahweh himself.
Yeah,
Like I say, I'm a military.
yeah. Obviously, there's going to be a destruction, and to me, it seems like it's coming a little later down the road, and maybe maybe it's going to take some time here for Turkey to do what it's going to do in Syria. I don't know, but yeah, I'm looking for the major timeline of things. I'm looking a lot at 2028, 2029 going forward is very interesting for me. But what I do want to watch now that I've come to the understanding of Saturn, because it's such a slow moving planet, to be watching it to see once it leaves um, Pisces here, which is the land of Israel, and moves into literally will be moving over the head of the Leviathan. Once it moves out of it, it'll move over. You talk about the year of Leviathan, so it moves over the head of Leviathan, and it could be that period of time that it's over the head of Leviathan before it enters the Ram that we could see something interesting happen. So maybe that's where the connection of 2029 and 30, because I do see. I will share this. So there's based on the blood moons, I had seen a pattern that happened in the red blood moons going all the way from 1492 all the way to 2014 and 15, that there appeared to be a duplication of the moons were duplicating, but also the events that were happening here were duplicating as well, not only with the people, but the event. And so it appears to be based on the witnesses and how it is repeated 5 times. So the sixth time would indicate that a war is going to take place with Israel, significant war, in 2031, around the end of October, 1st of November. So I don't know. We'll see if that's the one that's going to be the main. But it appears to be based on the pattern that it would be a war with the Islamic Muslim nations as it was in 2012.
I do
Right.
have a yeah.
Okay.
Yes, Lori, it has fallen.
There was another question by Blair too. It said, Cyrus, did you say HST is a Mossad controlled?
I'm sorry. HS, yes, it is. Abu Muhammad al-Jawani was born in Riyadh, Syria. They moved to Israel. He grew up in Israel. He went to, I think it was Tel Aviv University. He studied Islamic law, and he is a Mossad mole. He's part of the Ulysses Project. If you look that up, Israel did the Ulysses Project like United States did MK Ultra. They said they did away with it. No, they just made it harder to find. The Ulysses Project is still up and going. But what they're using now, the Ulysses Project, I won't get into it too deeply, but they take Israelis and they encourage them to marry Palestinians and produce children. And they'll use these Israelis who are professing to be Islamic and gathering information in all manners of possible. The British have a program, or had a program very similar to this years ago, and now they're using the children of these moles to get in deeper, and many of them are leading some of these quote terrorist cells. Al Julani actually led Al Nusra. He was in ISIS and Al Qaeda. Okay, and so he's changed from Al Nusra to this HST. And if you look, and I tell people, find out what HST stands for in Arabic, get the definition, and if you look at the definition closely enough, you might be able to figure out who is behind it. And I'm not going to say. You have to do that yourself.
Is he the guy, Cyrus, that I told you? Is he the guy that's the leader of the rebels that took over power in?
Yeah.
Okay, so remember I was telling you that they've discovered that in his name that he's written, at the end of the name is the word Shem.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's claiming to be a Shemite, which
yeah,
which would line up with what you're saying about a mole from Mossad. Yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah, but you can go online, do your searches, and you can find everything I just told you. It's there. Of course, they'll deny that it's still going on, like the CIA will deny that MK Ultra is still going on, but it's still going on. And this is something I know a little bit about. Okay, so that's left over from 50 years ago.
Remnant. Awesome.
Sorry. So wow, that's a wrap, I guess. Unless anyone's got any more questions or any more comments.
Did you see what Deborah Fay had? She put Sham is the S of the H. Yeah.
Yeah. Now translate that into English and take the English and look at it very closely, and think back to who has used that term, what leader in what country around the world has used that term exclusively. Okay? I think it's an important telltale sign. Like I say, find it yourself.
Tell us the interpretation of it in English.
I'm not saying anything.
Okay.
I've said enough.
Okay.
I've given you the key. Open the door.
All right.
Awesome. Okay, well then, Brother Mark, would you like to pray and
yes,
wrap up for us? Thanks.
All right. Heavenly Father, we come to you in your Son Yahushua's name. We thank you so much for this time to come together to talk about the things that you've created, the things you've given for signs, the things you've given for us to look and to, as our Master says, look up into the heavens. You'll see the sign of the Son of Man in the sky. And so you've told us over and over to be looking up and paying attention to what's going on. And so, Father, thank you for giving Brother Cyrus the understanding of how to interpret these cycles that are in the sun and the moon. Thank you for opening my eyes to the things in the heavens. And Father, may we continue to watch, to see, and make connections and connect the dots of what's taking place. Because you said that you do nothing unless you reveal it through the prophets, which are the heavens, the things in the sky. They are definitely the prophets, and it's up for us to work it out and to understand, interpret it. So open our eyes, open our hearts, so we may understand and discern them. We give you glory and praise. Thank you for everybody that joined and was a part of this today. May you be magnified and exalted in Yeshua's name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Awesome. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody, for attending. And
Yes, thank you.
a copy of this will be given out to brothers Mark and Cyrus. And Brother Mark will have it uploaded onto his website. I think it's livingmessiah. Is it com?
The YouTube channel, you just type in Living Messiah Ministries and the YouTube channel will pop up.
Oh, okay. So it'll be on there. And with Brother Cyrus, we're working on it. It will hopefully be on kahaltx.com. So we'll see how we go. That's CAHALTX.com. And we'll see how we go about doing that when we finish. Awesome. Thanks, guys. Over to you, Stephen.